Joe is a guy who loves music more than anything, but despite all his passion, he's never managed to make a living from it. To pay his bills, he works part-time as a music teacher at a public school. His students are all teenagers who barely care about music, which just makes Joe even more frustrated about where his life is going. One day during class, the principal calls him in and tells him he's being offered a full-time teaching contract. Most people would be excited, but Joe just feels conflicted. It's a stable job, sure, but it's also a reminder that his dream of becoming a real musician is slipping away. After work, Joe goes to his mom's sewing shop to tell her about the promotion. Instead of asking him what he wants, she immediately pushes him to accept the job and stop chasing concerts. She basically forces him to promise he'll take it. But right as he's about to settle for this safe choice, Joe gets a call from Curly, a former student. Curly tells him he's playing in the band of Dorothea Williams, one of the best jazz musicians in the country, and their pianist just quit. They need someone today. Joe can't believe it. This is the chance he's been waiting for his whole life. He rushes to the theater for the audition. When Dorothea learns he's just a high school teacher, she isn't impressed and doesn't want to waste her time. But Joe doesn't give up. He sits at the piano, listens to what the cellist is playing, and figures out the chords on the spot. His playing surprises Dorothea, so she lets him do a solo. Joe gets completely lost in the music, almost like he leaves the world for a moment. When he finishes, Dorothea tells him it wasn't bad and asks him to return later that evening in his best suit for rehearsal. Overwhelmed with happiness, Joe practically dances out of the theater. But while celebrating on his walk home, he doesn't notice an open manhole and falls straight in. Next thing he knows, he wakes up as a glowing blue soul on a moving walkway headed toward a giant bright light. Other souls explain that this is the path to the great beyond. Terrified, Joe refuses to accept that his life is over, especially on the day he finally got his break. He starts running in the opposite direction, pushing through the crowd, and eventually jumps off the walkway entirely. He falls through strange dimensions until he lands in a place covered in blue grass. He realizes he's in some kind of world of unborn souls. Small, playful spirits start crowding around him until a being shows up. It calls itself Jerry, and apparently all the counselors here are named Jerry. Jerry explains that this place is the great before, where new souls develop their personalities before going to Earth. Joe asks if he's dead, and Jerry says not exactly. His spirit is here, but his body is still alive, just unconscious. Jerry gives Joe a tour and shows him the Earth portal. Joe immediately tries to jump back, but every time he gets close, the portal throws him back into the great before. While he's standing there, frustrated, another Jerry assumes Joe is a mentor, an experienced soul sent to help young souls find their spark, and hands him a badge. Joe steals someone else's badge and joins the mentor group, hoping it'll help him sneak back to Earth. In the Great Beyond area, a soul counter realizes one soul is missing and begins searching for who escaped. Meanwhile, Joe attends the mentor orientation. The instructor explains that each soul develops interests, quirks, and personality in the great before, but they also need to find their spark, the thing that inspires them to live. Mentors help with that. When partners are assigned, Joe learns that the badge he stole belongs to Dr. Borgenson, so he has to pretend to be him. Then he gets paired with soul number 22. 22 is an old soul who has had countless famous mentors, from Muhammad Ali to Marie Antoinette, but has never found a spark. She actually likes it here and refuses to go to Earth. To keep up his act, Joe goes into the Hall of You with 22. This place shows key moments from the mentor's life. Joe admits he isn't Borgenson and says he just needs 22's badge so he can return to his body. But the badge is still incomplete because 22 hasn't found her spark yet. Joe suggests a deal. He'll help her find her spark. She'll complete the badge, and then she'll give it to him while she stays in the spirit world forever. They first try the Hall of Everything, a place filled with all kinds of activities. Joe tries to show her the joys of food, but nothing in the spirit world has taste or smell. They try art, sports, firefighting. Nothing clicks. 22 still doesn't feel inspired. A Jerry shows up saying Joe's time is up and he must move to the great beyond. Not wanting yet another mentor assigned to her, 22 begs for more time. Jerry leaves, and 22 leads Joe through a hidden passage. They enter a surreal desert-like world where souls from living people sometimes appear when they're deeply inspired, hypnotized, or zoned out. Joe realizes this is the place he entered mentally during his jazz solo. They see strange creatures wandering around. These are lost souls, people whose minds have spiraled into obsession or stress. One notices them and gives chase. Just as they're cornered, a huge ship swoops in. The captain, named Moonwind, greets 22 and helps capture the lost soul in a net. His crew rescues it by calming it down until it returns to normal. With their rituals finished, they open a portal that sends the freed soul back to its body. Joe is amazed. He grabs Moonwind's staff and draws a circle, hoping it will return him to Earth too. But instead of connecting to his body, the portal he opens leads straight back to the great beyond. Joe's soul is getting weaker and more disconnected from his body, so Moonwind decides to help him. He draws a huge circle on the ground and tells Joe to focus on seeing his body. Joe concentrates and finally spots himself lying on a hospital bed. The moment he sees it, he panics and tries to jump back in. But in the chaos, he accidentally pulls 22 with him. and they both fall into the human world together. Unfortunately, things go wrong fast. When they land, 22 ends up in Joe's human body, and Joe wakes up inside the hospital's therapy cat. The doctors walk in, and Joe tries to explain, but all they hear is a cat meowing. Only 22 can talk to humans, so Joe tells her what to say. But when she mentions the School of Souls, an accidental body swap, the doctors think Joe's just confused from medication and decide to keep him under observation. With only a few minutes before the hospital staff takes the cat away, Joe convinces 22 to escape so they can find the real version of Moonwind on Earth. The only problem? 22 has never controlled a body before. She can barely stand up. They wobble down the hallway, bumping into walls and knocking things over. Eventually, they sneak out without being noticed. But the moment they step outside, 22 freezes. New York is loud, crowded, and overwhelming. Joe tries getting her attention, but since he's a cat, he ends up scratching her by accident. Feeling pain for the first time, 22 panics and bolts. Joe chases her through the streets until he finds her hiding in an alley, terrified. To calm her down, Joe grabs a slice of pizza and offers it to her. The smell and taste blow her mind, and she immediately relaxes. With 22 feeling better, they continue searching for Moonwind. They find him quickly, and 22 shakes him out of his trance. He tells them they can switch bodies back, but they need to wait for the next astral opening, which won't happen until 6:30 p.m. With time to kill, Joe and 22 call a taxi to go home. But while getting in, Dorothea Williams sees Joe, with 22 inside him, in hospital clothes and decides he's unreliable. She hires someone else for the performance. Curly calls Joe and tells him what happened, but also says Joe should still show up in a proper suit and try to convince Dorothea to reconsider. Excited that he still has a chance, Joe tells 22 to put on his nicest suit. Before they can leave, one of Joe's students, Connie, knocks on the door saying she wants to quit music because it's pointless. 22 immediately agrees with her and even encourages her to give up school too. But when Connie plays the trombone to show what she means, 22 is unexpectedly moved by how good she is. She changes her mind and encourages Connie to keep going. Feeling something she's never felt before, 22 suddenly wants to try more human experiences. Hot showers, brushing her teeth, simple little things that make life feel warm. Joe then tells her to put on the suit again, and he tries to cut her hair, but because he's still a cat, he messes up spectacularly and slices a huge chunk of hair off. Joe knows he can't show up like that, so he takes 22 to the barbershop. The barber fixes her hair and gives her a clean new look that's perfect for the big night. During the haircut, the soul counter back in the spirit world finally finds Joe's missing file. She returns to Earth and starts tracking him. She eventually spots Joe and 22 leaving the barbershop and tries to catch them. But in the process, she accidentally grabs the soul of a random person, traumatizing him, and Joe and 22 slip away without noticing what's happening behind them. On the way to meet Moonwind, 22 bends down to pick something up and accidentally rips Joe's pants. With no choice left, Joe takes her to his mom's sewing shop. He tells 22 to lie to his mom, but everyone already knows he has a big performance with Dorothea, including his mother. 22 shows her the ripped pants, but his mom refuses to help and argues with Joe about him wasting his life chasing gigs instead of taking the stable teaching job. Joe gets upset, says she never supported him, and tries to leave. But 22, trying to repeat his words, blurts out everything Joe just said. After hearing the truth, his mom understands how he feels and softens. She apologizes and offers him his late father's favorite suit, which she tailors to fit him. Once Joe is fully dressed and ready, he heads to the theater to meet Moonwind. While waiting, 22 watches a father playing with his daughter and realizes she actually wants to live on Earth. She doesn't want to return to the great before. When Moonwind arrives at 6:30 to perform the body swap ritual, 22 panics and refuses to leave Joe's body. She runs, Joe chases, and the soul counter finally catches them in the subway, opening a portal that drags both souls back to the great before. There, Joe and 22 argue until the Jerrys notice that 22 has finally completed her badge, meaning she's found her spark. Confused, 22 wonders what it is. Joe snaps and tells her she only found it because she was living his life, not hers. Hurt, she throws the badge at him and disappears. Joe talks to a Jerry who explains that a spark isn't a job or purpose. It's just the desire to live. Still confused, Joe uses the badge to return to his body. He rushes to the theater, convinces Dorothea to let him play, and performs amazingly. But afterward, he feels empty. His lifelong dream came true, but he still feels the same. Thinking about what the Jerry said, Joe realizes 22 truly wanted to live. Wanting to make things right, Joe plays the piano at home, enters the astral plane again, finds Moonwind, and asks for help finding 22. They discover she has become a lost soul. Joe dives into the storm of 22's sadness, sees all the times she felt rejected, and finally reaches her. He comforts her, gives her confidence, and frees her. He returns her badge and walks her to the portal to Earth. 22 jumps through, beginning her life. Joe is pulled back to the great beyond, but before he crosses over, a Jerry stops him. The Jerrys agree to give him another chance at life. Joe returns to his body, and this time, he decides to enjoy every moment of it.